The Josh Crain Podcast. Hosted by Joshua T. Crain. Featuring Kyle Sproles of Active Shooter Response Solutions.
Kyle Sproles.
Hey.
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
Dude, this has actually been a long time coming. Right?
It has been, yes.
I was telling Adam, our camera guy, on the way up here, I think we started this process about 2 years ago.
Oh man, was it that long ago?
yeah. Got really close to getting all the logistics done, and then some things, on your side of the aisle kind of kicked off that stopped it all. And I'm super glad we were able to kind of reconnect here recently and get this time going. So I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Me too, man.
Excited to be in West Virginia. I'm excited to be at this training facility, and it's going to be a great weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
All right, man, let me tell a little bit about yourself here before we get going too deep. So Kyle Sproles, 13-year Army Special Forces Green Beret veteran. You've served as Special Forces Operational Detachment Alpha, team member across combat and non-combat deployments, currently National Guard Special Forces, CQB, firearms driving instructor, and more recently, and one of the biggest reasons I wanted to talk to you is you are the founder, owner of Active Shooter Response Solutions, which I know we're going to get into here in a little bit, and I'm really excited to hear about. So, dude, thank you so much for taking the time. You're a busy guy. I mean, people think I'm busy, but I know you're running wide open.
We're both busy, man. Life is crazy, but yeah, I'm super pumped to be here, man. Josh, thanks for coming up all the way, making the drive up here to West Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm excited for some training we're going to do next 2 days.
Oh, me too, man. Me too. I told my buddies back home, I said, he's going to put me through the paces, but I'm looking forward to it.
I hope so, man. I hope so. We just got to make David look like a dummy on the bench. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, we'll do our best.
All right.
Yeah. All right, man. So let's kind of start back. Let's kind of start back before the beret.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Man, I grew up in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, small farm town in Pennsylvania. And yeah, pretty much my whole life. And then from there, graduated high school, went to college at Messiah University, which is not far down the road from there. It's in Harrisburg, just right outside Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And yeah, graduated there with a business degree. Business and entrepreneurship was like an entrepreneurship focus. And that's what I always wanted to do, was be a business owner, because I got a taste of that in high school for a couple years. My friends and I ran a small business it was called 3 Odd Guys. It was like odd jobs and building retaining walls and doing yard work and things like that. And that gave me the taste of entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh man, this is where it's at. Like, no boss. You're telling me I could work extra hard and make more money and I'm not capped on a salary, like, I can work hard. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid of hard work. So, yeah, that's where I grew up.
So, obviously, big chunk of your life now has been devoted to the military. Was the military always something that was in your future, or how did that come about?
I was always interested in the military. I mean, it's kind of weird looking back, because, even as a kid, I'd be out in the woods with my friends running little missions and, building hide sites and just doing all the stuff that we saw, like read in the books or saw in the movies. And I always kind of wanted to do it. And Marines was the thing I wanted to do in high school. And I was like really set on trying to go the Marines route. And my dad was like, he gave me some advice. He said, man, just go to college, graduate college, and then you can do, whatever you want from there. I'm not going to stop you from going to the Marines, but that's what I would recommend. And so I listened to him, and I went and graduated with a bachelor's. And then, right after that, I was working a civilian cubicle job I just despised with everything in me. I was dead inside, after that. And we can go more into that later, but yeah. And then after that, I finally broke, and I was like, I'm joining the military. So, yeah.
But not the Marine Corps.
Not the Marines, no. So I guess I'll just get into this story now. So basically, the time frame was really interesting. The GWAT was kind of in full swing.
What year are we talking about?
I guess throughout college. So I graduated in 2013 from Messiah.
Okay.
And prior to that, we had killed bin Laden, and I remember watching that on the news, in my dorm room. I think that was sophomore year with my friends, and it was like, whoa, that's crazy. And, and then as I was getting out of college, graduating, going into the business world a little bit, I started working for a company who I really liked the owner and the founder. He was very entrepreneurially minded. And I thought, well, I'm going to go work for him for a couple years and learn more about how to be an owner, because that's what I ultimately want to do. And so I started working for that company. And at the same time, it was a sports training company for kids. We trained a bunch of kids. At the same time, the Islamic State was really making big moves. 2014, I think they kind of came on the stage. Don't quote me on that, but the way we left Iraq it just created this massive power vacuum in Iraq and Syria, and in Iraq mainly. And so, anyone who knows anything knows that if you leave a big power vacuum, people are going to come in and fill that, right? And it's the biggest dog on the street or the most violent, essentially. And that's what happened. So we left Iraq in a way that was probably not the best, in my opinion. And that was around the time I was graduating, starting my business career. And I was sitting in my cubicle just watching. This was kind of an interesting time where you can just be on social media on your smartphone and see ISIS, chopping people's heads off and stuff. And so I was sitting there working this job that I kind of despised and hated, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And I was not happy with the way things were running, because the Islamic State was just quite literally raping and pillaging its way across Iraq and into Syria, just committing genocide and doing the worst possible imaginable things, selling little kids into sex slavery, and little boys into sex slavery, and women, and just also, if you've been through that phase, right? And I asked myself, man, who's doing anything about this? We're not doing anything about this. Who's doing something? And the only thing that was barely in the news was a couple special operations raids that were targeting those guys. And those were the only real people that I knew around the entire world that were doing anything about this Islamic State thing. And so I said, maybe I'm going to try out for the special operations community. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm going to go in. So I went and talked to a recruiter and quit my job at the sports company. And then essentially I thought I was going to be in within a month or two. So I quit my job. And then turns out what I really wanted to do was I asked myself this question. I said, who in all of US SOF, Special Operations Forces, gets in the quickest and has a chance to go make an effect on the battlefield the fastest? And for me, that was the Ranger Battalion. And so I was very keyed in on the Ranger Battalion. They go and they do a few weeks, guys, Ranger back guys, don't butcher this, okay? I'm not a Ranger, so I don't know all the exact details, but it's a shorter time period than most other special operations units. So they go in, they do RASP for a couple weeks, and then they pass Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. And then after that, they go to Ranger School, which can be a few months, maybe 3 months, depending, I think. I never did Ranger School. And then they're off to go fight the GWAT and go make a major effect on the battlefield. And that's what I was like, all right, I just want to do this for a couple years. I want to go do my piece, support my country, and try to save as many of those poor people that I'm seeing, just having, getting pillaged over there, and come back and continue my business career. The problem was I guess maybe I wasn't the only one that had that idea. There was no Ranger contracts available at all for many months and many months and many months. So I ended up quitting my job, had all this college debt, and I am trying to get in, and I'm being patient. I'm trying to really trust God on this, because I was praying so much about this. I'm this is a major life change. My parents are we just helped put you through business school. What are you doing?
Right, yeah, I bet.
We're not fans of this. What's going on here, Kyle? So it was a big turning point in my life, and I just waited and waited. I was really patient. I'm I know what I want. I want to go do this. And then it turns out that finally the recruiter, after 10 months, was Kyle, listen, man, there's just nothing coming out. And if you want to be in Ranger Battalion, what they do is that we'll put you through as an infantry guy, just an 11 Bravo Army infantry guy. And every basic training class, they have special operations recruiters come through and they pick out like 1, 2, maybe 3 of like the top PT studs. So your best bet is to just be a complete PT stud, be in shape, outwork everybody, and maybe there's a chance that somebody will come pick you out of that. And I said, freaking good enough for me. I was working at Chipotle, washing dishes in the back with a business degree. And let me tell you, Chipotle was like one of the best jobs I ever had. It was awesome. I loved Chipotle. I loved it. It was awesome. But I finally, because, I was like so poor. You get 1 free meal a day as a Chipotle employee. The second meal is 50% off, and then you just got to buy like cereal for breakfast. So I was so poor and I was like mopping floors, and I'm working out at a CrossFit gym. I was just getting jacked, eating like burritos every day. So anyway, finally went in and did the basic training thing. Long story short is we're getting close to the end of basic training. I'm like, I'm going to be an Army infantryman. And this is just where I'm going to go. I got a duty assignment, Fort Hood, Texas. And finally, like we had a weird Christmas break. We'd go on Christmas leave and then come back and do another week or 2 and graduate. And right before Christmas, 2 of my best friends, Jay Jackson and Ramiro, whose name I won't say, his last name I won't say, but we were all just regular infantry guys, and we got called up on the firing line. Hey, Sproles, you 2, come here. All 3 of you, come here. And it was just this like kind of jerk drill sergeant. Like none of us liked him. He was like a total jerk. But he slapped these 3 contracts down in front of us. And he said, you have 2 minutes to decide if you guys want to go try out for the Special Forces, which is the Green Berets. And in my head, I was thinking, oh man, that's not what I really wanted to do. I didn't want to be a Green Beret because I didn't think I was good enough, frankly. I really didn't think I was good enough, because the Special Forces guys, we call them Special Forces. That is the only Special Forces. Everybody else is Special Operations, just to be clear. But the Special Forces Green Berets, they were like bearded, more mature, older guys that had like a ton of experience, right? And they had come from Ranger Battalion or come from infantry line units. And so I didn't think I was good enough. My plan was, hey, I'm going to go Ranger Bat. If I like this, I'm going to try to go out for the Green Berets. And so anyway, I had 2 minutes to decide. My 2 best buddies, they signed it right away. Instantly. And I'm sitting there taking the whole 2 minutes, like saying a little prayer. The drill sergeant's sitting at me like, you're a waste of air. Like, what are you doing here? I've got things to do. So anyway, I signed it and off we went. So that was an 18 X-ray contract that essentially meant we have an opportunity to try out for the Special Forces. We went straight to airborne after graduating, and then airborne school, and then pre-selection, they call it SOPSI. I don't know if it's the same name now. It's been 13 years, and then you go to selection, which is 3 weeks. And then if you get selected, then you go through just about a 2-year qualification course, which is another reason why I was like, that's a big investment when I'm just trying to, go out, make an effect on the battlefield, come back, continue my business life and my life in general. And that's how it all started, man.
So if I condense that down, basically what you're telling me is you graduate college, you're sitting there looking at what's going on in the world, and you've got a pull to actually be productive and do something meaningful to help other people that you could see were completely being run over.
Yeah.
And your mindset was, what is the fastest way for me to be the most effective on the battlefield and help those people? And in your mind, that was Ranger Battalion. That's like, that's where I've got to go. And you just started digging to try to get to that and ended up going Green Beret. Now the Q course famously weeds out a ton of people. But not you. So
by the grace of God, man, I'll tell you, it was.
So what was that? What was that experience like?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that there are so many guys that washed out alongside of me that I think would have been better Green Berets than me. The Q course is a weird animal. They have their systems on how they select folks, and I don't know all the details on it. I know a lot of it now, which I'm not going to tell it to everybody, but they have their ways of doing it, and it was also harder for a lot of the guys who had come in from being like an E6 or like an NCO or an E5 and been in the infantry for years and had combat deployments, right? So they were coming in, and then the cadre and the instructors, they really just treat you like dirt. Like you are lower than dog crap. And for the most part, for the most of it. And really a large part of it is like, how much BS can you just put up with? Because that's kind of what the Army is anyway. It's just a lot of BS. And sometimes you get to do some cool stuff. And so a lot of the older senior combat tested guys, they were like, this is such BS. Why am I here? I'm just going to go back to my unit and then go on another combat deployment. So for me, I didn't have that option. It was like, I told myself before, I'm like, this is the path I've chosen. I am either going to die out here in training, which has happened before. And so that was the mentality. I was like, I'm going to die out here and that's totally cool with me, or I'm going to finish it and then they will tell me I'm selected or not. And that's all there is to it. There's no other option. And so anyway, I say that all that to say is like, I maintain extreme humility throughout all of this because I have imposter syndrome. I don't even believe that I'm a Green Beret sometimes. When I first showed up to I'm getting a little bit of ahead, but when I first showed up to my unit at 3rd Group, there was just giants around me. I mean, giants of men that had been deploying and fighting the GWAT for like 15 years. And I had done absolutely nothing in my useless little life compared to them, like when I had got there, right? And I just look around me and there's just, legends, people that I read about and read books about, while I was like trying to get into the Army. And just so much experience. And the funny thing is you go through this 2 year, just about 2 years, could be a little less, could be a little bit more depending on if you pass everything on time, or don't wash out or get injured or recycle or whatever. But you really don't know anything by the end of those 2 years, like compared to the guys that are around you when you get to your unit. So it's basically just like a basic training for special forces. And then you start learning over like another 2 to 3 year period. You actually learn what you're supposed to do in your job after like 2 years. I remember after being there for 2 years, I was like, all right, I actually kind of know what I'm doing a little bit.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because if you think about that in the civilian world, that pretty much parallels college, professional schools, whatever. I mean, I tell people all the time, you go to law school's hard. But law school does not teach you how to practice law. That you learn that when you get out of law school and you actually are working with other people and you're being mentored and you're really starting to figure out, okay, this is how to, you have concepts in school.
Yeah.
You have philosophies in school, but the practicality comes later. So there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
So when you graduate and you get to 3rd Group, what does your mission look like in reality compared to what your vision was that drove you to get in?
That's a great question, because there is, I will say, after experiencing this for all these years, there's a disparity between what you kind of think you're going to do and then what you actually do. Especially for my generation coming in, like my class and my generation, the year or two maybe of my guys that went through, we were coming off of books, some books, like, Navy SEALs write books and make movies. Green Berets don't really do that. We just get the job done. But, there's some like, there's like, what was that one? 2 Weeks in Hell was that documentary series on how to get, what the selectees were going through, the candidates were going through in selection for Green Berets and things like that. So we're just soaking up all this information, and we're watching the news, and we're seeing awesome, cool pictures of bearded guys in Afghanistan, doing cool things. And they really were doing a lot of that. And I got a small taste of that near the beginning part of my career. But there is a disparity. Like, we're not just door kickers. Like, we are good, really good at doing the door kicking thing, but we also have like 500 other jobs we're supposed to be good at. And the primary of which is unconventional warfare. It's this term that's kind of hard to explain if you don't really know the details of it, but unconventional warfare, essentially, our job as Green Berets is essentially, we will go into a country and we will clandestinely infiltrate that country potentially through various means that we practice and train all the time. And we make contact with essentially a rebel force that is either already some semblance of a fighting force or absolutely nothing at all. And they're just like townsfolk who are fed up with the government, right? Like say, for example, there's some dictator in a country and we will go in clandestinely, make contact with them, and essentially raise a rebel force in secret that nobody knows about, somewhere where no one can find us. And we train them from absolutely ground zero up to be a legitimate, qualified fighting force. And then, depending on if we go through the full scale of unconventional warfare, we might actually do kinetic operations with them. And then there might be, I don't really know exactly how much of this I'm allowed to talk about, to be honest. So I got to be a little careful, but basically it can scale up to full scale warfare. And that's basically what GBs do. So there is some awesome door kicking stuff. There's military free fall, there's sniper operations, there's all sorts of little rabbit holes of cool schools and specialties that you can have that are useful for the team and the mission overall and the national mission, right? But a lot of it is teaching, training other folks how to do battle drill 1 alpha, like Ranger handbook, infantry fighting stuff, and then fighting alongside of them. Very, very rarely do we go on operations unilaterally. Normally it's with a partner force. And that's actually to a huge advantage because they know the terrain, they know the civilian populace, they can guide us, they can help, keep us kind of under wraps a little bit longer than if we were just, I don't know, a couple white guys in Africa. It's like we don't really blend in very, very well. So that's the difference in what most people think that's going to be, just door kicking the whole time.
Well, okay, so you're right. And doing a little bit of research in preparation for coming and sitting down and talking to you at this level, the idea of Green Berets being door kickers, that is a very predominant theme out there. But another thing that's out there that I've heard described is that the Green Berets are almost like the first responders internationally. Like y'all are going to these places like you just described and infiltrating at a clandestine level, raising up, an opposition force. If you're able to, are there any deployments like that you've been on that kind of reframed the way that you thought about the Green Berets compared to what your thought process was when you first got in?
Yeah, pretty much all my deployments, to be honest, which I don't have that many deployments compared to my peers. Again, I'm just like, man, I wish I would have had more of effect, But anyway, when you go on these operations, you realize that you are a multi-tool essentially. And oftentimes you are used as a tool for foreign policy. If we're trying to become closer allies with one of our partner allied nations, right? One of the agreements made at the highest level was like, hey, we'll do all these things for you, you do these things for us, and then also we'll train your military. And, militaries around the world want the American military to come train them, right? Because we're the best. And, we'll send you our special operations guys. So then it turns into, it could be nothing more than just going to a country and training the partner forces special operations guys, or their police forces, or their infantry guys. Or it could be, I'm not going to go too far in depth, but there's so many things that we get to do and we can do, which is really cool. Because if you like the door kicking stuff, then you can start pushing your career towards that kind of thing. If you like the sniper stuff, if you like the more clandestine stuff, then you can go all these different routes. It's really cool. Okay. That's probably all I'll say.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let me ask I got 2 last questions, I guess, on that. And I really want to transition to what you're doing now because I'm super interested in that. First question I've got though is, what do you think is the biggest kind of misconception about the Green Berets? Like, the average person, I mean, does it just go back to they all just think we're door kickers and kind of Neanderthals, or is there something that through your experience you said, man, I wish more people understood this about what we actually do? Yeah,
the Hollywood does everyone a disservice. The really cool, I think, part about being a Green Beret is that there are some of the most hardcore dudes that I've ever known. Some real killers are guys that just look like an average guy. It is not like the TV show SEAL Team or Team 6 or whatever. I don't even watch that. obviously. But yeah, it's not all guys that are like stacked and on steroids and working out all the time and it's just not that. There's a whole, there's not a body type is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. There's one guy I went through selection with who was a really small framed Asian guy. And he just would always like kind of struggle on some of the physical events, but he was good at other things. And that's the thing, is it's not physical. It's really a mind game. It's all about your mentality. And that's what weeds people out is you get these guys that come through selection. They're just stacked, man. They're huge guys, but their mentality is weak and they can't make it. So they're out. We don't care if you're stacked. I don't care. I want you to be able to drag me out of a field if I get shot somewhere. For sure, you need to be able to perform that, that thing, but you also need to be able to be resilient, think on your feet, be a major problem solver, because sometimes, honestly, a lot of missions that we get are, hey, it's a very overall broad thing. Boom, go do this. And there's not much guidance and you have to do all these things. And so the biggest misconception is we're not all freaking huge stacked SEAL Team 6 guys like on the TV show SEAL Team 6. Yeah. And not all of special operations is like that. But some of the guys who are like the most hardcore dudes are just very average looking guys. Like you would see him in Chipotle and just be like, oh, that's just a dad. You know what I mean? Or that guy maybe does like, I don't know, but really you have no idea what he did, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Awesome. Last question on this. Are there times where in the special forces, special operations community that there's kind of overlap with teams that work? In other words, are there times where you would go on mission and you would be working with Marine Recon, or you would have a SEAL unit that's attached or whatever? I think a lot of times, especially in popular culture, and as you mentioned a moment ago, with the books you read and the podcasts you listen to, you kind of get a feel that everything's really segmented. Mm-hmm. And maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe there's a reason for it. But I am curious, how much interplay does that community have kind of across the branches?
It is a massive team. It's all a big team. You hear things, I'm training a lot of law enforcement through my company and stuff. You hear things in law enforcement about drama between departments. You see things in the movies about drama between units and, oh, this is my mission. It's just really, there's probably some of that at the higher level that I don't see. But at the end of the day, everyone has kind of a specialty. So I remember multiple times, pretty much every time we go out and do something, we have Air Force SOF with us. We have combat controllers that are controlling all the aircraft in the sky while we're on mission focusing on the ground. And then when my team, our 12-man team with our partner force, is actually doing the raid on a compound on some ISIS arms dealer in Syria or something, like we need guys watching out while we go do the raid and do the CQB on the house, right? On the multiple houses. So we have infantry uplift. That could be Army infantry. It could be Marine infantry. When we were in Syria in 2019 and 2020, there was a major armor threat, like the enemy and ISIS and everybody else around. The Russians were there. It was a melting pot of militaries all in one nation. And there was tanks that we were watching enemy tanks all the time. So we had Marine uplift that were CAT teams, combined anti-armor teams. And they were infantry and guys who could blow up a tank with a shoulder-fired rocket from, who knows how far away. And they were freaking awesome. I love those guys. They're very squared away. Made some friends there. And so, yeah, it's all a big team. When I'm on the objective, we got the infantry guys pulling outward security. We're doing CQB, trying to capture the arms dealer. There could be 8 aircraft in the air at any given time. And I'm not exaggerating. Like one operation we had, I think, in AC-130, we had F-22s or F-35s. I think they were F-35s. We had an air weapons team, which is 2 Apaches. We had an armed Predator drone. And so I think that's at least the things that can come off. And so that's a whole nother job. Someone's got to control all of that, do strikes, make sure they're not hitting friendly forces. So it's a big team is what I'm trying to say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you still are, you've spent all these years mission focused, recognizing, as you indicated a moment ago, that a lot of what you need to do, and maybe the more important element of what you need to do, is that mental component, recognizing what the mission is, understanding how to accomplish the mission, problem solving. And so when you stepped away from that active duty role and you started your company, I can already see it's that same mindset again, because you looked out into the civilian world and you said, I see a threat. I recognize what it takes to address that. I'm going to problem solve and figure out where are the weaknesses. Yeah. And you started building for that. So talk to us about ASR Solutions.
Yeah. Active Shooter Response Solutions started basically in the team room after we would be on the range cleaning guns, and we'd be drinking a beer, cleaning guns, ready to go home for the end of the day. And we would see the latest active shooter incident on the news, or we would see a law enforcement officer who would get killed in the line of duty. And it would tear me up, or tear at least some of us up, and me especially, watching this guy get killed or hurt, or watching civilians get hurt and killed. If they had just known what we know, they would be alive today. And it's not complicated. It's very simple. Instead of pulling up to a traffic stop and opening your door and then drawing down on the vehicle while you're in the V of the door, and then bullets ripping right through the door because it's basically cardboard, and that's how they've been trained, versus hopping out and getting to the rear of the vehicle, using the whole length of the vehicle, including the engine block, which we know stops most bullets. We out here at Summit Point Training Facility, man, we do that. We do a vehicle lab, ballistic lab, every week almost. And we take all these junker vehicles, we shoot through them, we shoot the gas tank, and guess what? The car doesn't blow up, right? It's not like the movies. It's crazy. Yeah, so we do all this ballistic testing, and we can talk more about Summit Point later, but my point is, like, it was tragic watching these underfunded, undertrained law enforcement guys that are really just trying to do the best they can with what they got. And that was just not acceptable to me at all, because this is the home front, and active threats, active shooters across the country are rising almost every year. And if it goes down for a year, it comes back up even higher the next year. I mean, there's multiple graphs that I show when I teach in my classes. And like the FBI, for example, did a study. I think it was from 2001 to 2019 or 2020 or something. It's almost a 20-year study. And the graph is it's undeniable. It's like they just get higher and higher every year, up. And the NYPD did an active shooter study along about the same time frame, and they came up with many of the same stats. So anyway, my point is, it's a growing problem. It's not going away, and we need to address this, because people are scared to send their kids to school, man. Yeah. Like, I've talked to so many parents it's in the forefront of their mind. I work a lot on college campuses for the unarmed. So I'll give you the overview of my company here in a minute, but basically I'm doing a lot of consulting and vulnerability assessments at higher ed, in higher ed campuses across the country. And, dads will come through an admissions tour and they'll ask, hey, what are you guys doing here to keep my daughter safe? Which is not a thing that has been historically asked, Right. So it's just, there's soft targets. There's a lot of soft targets, and that's what these active shooters want. The mentality, we can get into the mentality in a little bit, because I got a lot to say about that. It took me a while to understand the mentality of an active shooter. I just did not understand it. I came from a different world. But they're really just looking for soft targets. They're not going to shoot up a police station, right? They're going to go shoot up an elementary school because they want to feel big and strong and like they're important and like nothing can stop them. And then the second a law enforcement guy kicks down the door, doesn't even find the active shooter yet, but he says, police, or whatever, sheriff's office. And he comes around the corner and the shooter had just been shooting people for 15 minutes. And now he's on his knees with his hands up and his gun's over in the corner. And it's just like, he just gives up, because that's the mentality. They're weak-minded individuals. We talk a lot about that in our class. And there's a whole way to combat that, if knowing the psychology of an active shooter.
Yeah. That's, so this is where the interview gets difficult, because my mind, to me, the first part was easy because I know nothing about what you do as a Green Beret. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for me. Like, I need to know what my questions are. Now we're moving into an area that my lawyer brain kicks in, because I do know something about this. And I have all these things going on in my mind because I'm looking at this situation overall and I'm saying, man, we've got a cultural problem. We've got a recognition problem. We've got an awareness problem. We were just talking last night at the house before we came here about the fact that the small group that traveled with me to come train with you, all of our friends know that we train all the time. But if you ask any one of them why we train, it's kind of a mystery to them.
Yeah.
It's weird to them. You're like, why do y'all go do this all the time? Yeah. So there's this real disconnect between the idea of being prepared and being capable, and not, while also having a real recognition that this is a problem.
Yep.
So when you built the company and you obviously identified the issue that you wanted to address, how did you decide where am I going to start? Because as you just mentioned, there's any number of ways that you could have gone with that. Mm-hmm. How did you decide this is where I need to start focusing and build from there?
Well, obviously I want to be the guy that goes in and shoots the active shooter. Like if there was, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I could do that somehow without being law enforcement. For a number of reasons, because, my wife and I've just been through a ton with the Special Forces, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to start another career in that same vein. I need to step back, and I want to be an owner, a business owner and things. So I decided not to go that track. And I was having, kids were coming and all that. So if I couldn't be the guy that goes in and shoots the guy, frankly, that's really what we're talking about here. Shooting a guy to ending a life in order to save the lives of a bunch of elementary school kids, right? If I couldn't do that, then I need to get to the folks that are going to be most likely to do that. And that would be law enforcement. That would be not the SWAT teams, the SRTs. I train SRTs a lot. We do like a CQB audit, especially here in this building. We'll have local teams come. They'll run a bunch of CQB, and I'm a CQB instructor at 19th Group, and so I will run them through the latest and greatest, and then update their system a little bit and keep them safe. But really, the patrol officers are the guys that are going to be the true first responders to an active threat, right? And so I started training them. I just want to train those guys. And the really difficult part is, it's pretty challenging to make a livelihood training patrol officers because there's just no funding. There's just no funding. So then I went down the track. All right, well, let's do a nonprofit. Can I just do a nonprofit organization that does this for free to the police departments? And so there's a couple of those out there that I'm starting to partner with. And then I started hearing some needs from the schools, and that would be the non-armed side. So basically, active shooter response solutions, you can consider us all things active threat response. It's all we do, all things active threat response. There's the armed side of that, and then there's the unarmed civilian side of that. And there's tools that I equip both sides with that will allow them to save their own lives and get home to their families, right? And that's the whole goal of the company. So then I started hearing needs in higher ed. Folks are asking through the grapevine to me, like, hey, can you come give us an active shooter course, an active threat response course? And then sprinkle in a couple other things because we go out into town and we do XYZ and homeless populations or whatever. And so, this first really, truly all started with me going to the University of Kentucky and training one of their departments and them being really happy with the training. And I was like, wow, I can't believe you're so happy with this. They were pumped up and they were excited. And I had given basically a bunch of these social workers, I had given them hope to be prepared in the event of an emergency situation. And something that I've learned through this is that even the armed responders oftentimes, but more the civilian folks that I train, they just, especially a lot of women, they kind of just walk around all day in this low level stress of I don't know what's going to happen around this corner. This is dangerous. Especially women, they live in a little bit different world than us men sometimes because oftentimes there's people bigger than them that can do whatever they want with them, wherever they go, right? So giving these folks hope and a preparedness is they eat it up.
Yes.
And so on the preparedness thing, I'm a huge fan of being prepared. The cool thing about my course is it's an active shooter response course, right? Because that's the hot topic right now. But then we cover things for the civilian side. We cover things like de-escalation techniques, human physiological stress response. Like, you need to understand how your body is going to react in a high stress situation, because I've seen in the Special Forces guys who feel prepared, they think they're prepared, and then they go into a situation and they are most definitely not prepared for that situation, right? Because they have not trained adequately for that situation, right? And in my course, I give 2 situations of me in that situation where I thought I was prepared and just performed miserably and almost lost my life. And thanks to one of the free fall instructors who came in, flipped me right side up, spun me around, and essentially pulled my parachute for me before I hit the ground, that saved my life in that situation. Versus another situation where I was part of a mass casualty situation where I had trained year after year after year with my medic, and I'm not a medic, and I was just side by side with him in his, at his hip, learning all these things. And then, what do you know? One combat deployment I was on, I was the first guy to walk into a room, and I was the only Green Beret there at the time for a short period before the medics got there, where there was like 8 casualties right in front of me. A couple guys that didn't make it, a couple guys that had legs blown off, a couple guys that had eviscerations and head and back trauma, and I was the guy there. And I walked into the room, and I kind of knew what to do because I'd trained it for so many years. And then the med team came, and we took care of the situation. We saved as many guys as we could, right? So anyway. Wow, I'm really going down a rabbit hole. I get super excited about this stuff.
I can tell, and I love that. I love that energy, because you've said a lot, but you've said 2 things that I totally can relate to. On the one hand, because it's been my experience too. Okay, when it comes to the training that we do, and predominantly when we focused on our law enforcement training. Most of our law enforcement guys, they don't want to come to us for their weapons training, because all that's done in the house. Right. But things like defensive tactics, control tactics, we would build these courses, and I'm smart enough to know that you surround yourself with good people. Yes. And so I made it a point when I started my company that the people that were going to be part of my cadre were going to be people that were really, really good at their thing. And so one of my best friends on the planet is also named Kyle. He was my control tactics guy, defensive tactics guy. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a wrestler from the time he was like little bitty. I mean, the guy's an absolute stud. So it's a no-brainer. Like, that's the guy that's going to train that. When it came to the law enforcement side, number one, I couldn't get him to pay to send guys.
Yeah, I know.
And number 2, even when I said, okay, listen, don't pay me.
Yeah.
I'll give you free slots. Just send them. One department.
I know.
One department will routinely send me their people. And it's been a complaint that I've had and my buddies have had for years, is like, the guys that should be training the most from a departmental standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, don't. Right. But you're right. On the flip side of that, when I go and I do like a women's only control tactics course, they are so excited. Yeah. And it's not because when they leave, they're like, okay, I can totally do this now. In fact, they leave and they're like, all right, I really need to keep training. But what they leave with is like what you said, they leave with hope.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I try to instill in them is, do not walk around thinking that because you're a woman, you're automatically a victim. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be that way. Mm-hmm. You are capable of doing things, okay? Yep. But if you stay in the mindset that, well, I'm a woman, he's a man, it's already a lost battle, then it is. But it's only that way because you've already predetermined it's that way. Yep. So I 100% agree with you, and I'm passionate about that. I wish I could do that all the time instead of practicing law, because it's way more fulfilling when you see people really begin to understand that they can do more than they think they can do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so many things I want to touch on what you just said. Like 2 things, the law enforcement thing, and then the mentality, right? I get the same thing in these courses all the time, where the civilian side students or school administrators or faculty, staff, whatever, right? I'll give a course and I'll talk about our system is called BECON, Barricade, Escape, Control, Oppose, Notify, right? And that was created here at Summit Point, and they've allowed me to start teaching this across the country. And that's kind of our proprietary system that we have. And when I get to the point about oppose, right? The opposing of an active shooter. A lot of people, not a lot, actually, a few select people, they're like, Kyle, like, listen, this guy has a rifle and he's coming in and he's got a rifle what am I supposed to do? I'm not going to win this. I'm not going to win this. Why even try to fight? Let's just curl up in a ball, basically, and hide in the corner. And first of all, I don't identify with that at all. But secondly, the cool, really awesome part about the data that is coming out from all these years of these active shooters growing is that, I wish I had the stats in front of me right now, but close to 50%, I think, of active shooters are stopped prior to law enforcement intervention by civilians. I think it's in the 40%. I think maybe it's 43%, somewhere along there. They're stopped either by committing suicide because they reach opposition, somebody opposes them, or so basically some type of non-law enforcement entity opposes them. 43%, that's close to 50%. That means that you have a real chance of stopping an active shooter by surprising him, hitting him over the head with a fire extinguisher is like the classic example. Tackling him, taking his weapon away, spraying him with pepper spray, or you know what's the most effective? Just locking the door and going in the corner. Because again, they're looking for easy targets, not resistance. Right. So they go up to the door and they try to open the door and they can't get in. Are they going to sit here for 2 minutes trying to breach a door, shoot through the door, try to jimmy it through and get inside? Or are they just going to go to the next door down the hall that's open and shoot those folks, right? And I think even Alert just came out with a big report and a bunch of data that was talking about just the best way to stop an active shooter is just locking your door and turning off the lights. And that's basically how the large majority of people had saved their own lives, right? And so anyway, if they do get into the room, you fighting them is really gonna significantly decrease their chances of wanting to keep going because they're soft. Right. And imagine, this is what I always talk about in my class, imagine the feeling that guy's gonna have when he walks through a door with a pistol or a rifle or a baseball bat or a knife or whatever, and then in 3 seconds, he's dogpiled by 3 people, someone takes his gun away and he's on the ground with nothing in his hands. Like that weapon gave him the power. That's right. And all of a sudden, he's got nothing. Oh, shoot. Right. Dude, what did I do? You know, and then he's getting kicked in the face and tied up with an extension cord or some shoelaces or his belt or whatever, right?
Which is not what he expected.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing.
Exactly.
He chose that soft target because he did the analysis and he said it's soft. Mm-hmm. So the thing that he is not anticipating is any level of resistance.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, you're dead on right. All the stats show, especially when it comes to the barricade portion, if you barricade, he's not going to stay there and try to overcome the barricade. Yep. He's going 1 or 2 kicks, whatever, can't get it, he's moving on. Yeah. You know, one of the things that when we've specifically talked with teachers, we get a lot of frustration because when we talk to them about like what you call the oppose end of things, you know, they tell us, like, well, Josh, we're not allowed, I'm not even allowed to carry pepper spray on my keychain in the school. And, you know, this is what we tell them. We say, well, listen, I understand you're not, but right now there's no policy where you're at that says you're not allowed to have hornet spray in your desk.
Yeah. Okay? There's always a word.
So, you know, but again, the idea is you have to determine what is the issue. How do I address that issue? Mm-hmm. And you can't, in my opinion, you can't stop and say, well, they told me I can't do this. Okay, fine. That you not being able to have mace does not mean that the guy doesn't still come in the building.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we're still preparing for that, we have to have that alternative. Yeah. And at the end of the day, to me, it's as much about empowering them to begin to think that way as it is mechanically teaching them a specific skill set.
100%. And so not to say that there hasn't been shooters in the past, like there have been that have gone back to locked doors when they can't find anyone to shoot and shot through. And then obviously glass and large window panes on the side of doors makes it really easy. So if it's like a quick solution they could get through, like, of course there's been examples of that. I can name 3 off the top of my head right now. But the goal is, and we talk about that in our vulnerability assessments all the time at these colleges and higher ed and other businesses and churches. We do a lot with churches. I didn't mention that. So anyway, there's examples, but the goal is to just put as much, it's very easy is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's not high expense. It's not a lot of effort to just put a couple little pieces in place that will probably save your life. And the last thing I'll say on the civilian side of the training is that, the chance of you ever encountering an active shooter is pretty low, but it's very high risk. So there's always, the way we do risk analysis sometimes in the military is like, most likely course of action that the enemy could do and most dangerous course of action the enemy can do, right? Another way to look at that is, okay, this is a low probability, very high risk situation versus the other things that I teach in the course that are like, pretty decent probability, like almost a high probability that at some point in your life, you're going to need to do an emergency response, right? You are going to need to, you're going to be in a car accident maybe, you're going to see a car accident, your family member is going to have some kind of health emergency that you're going to need to respond to, right? There's going to be something in your life. It's going to be bad weather and all of a sudden you got no electricity and the roof is caving in. That's an emergency response, right? And so all the things that I teach in the active threat response course, including all the medical, all these other things, it's going to help you in your life because you are almost certainly going to have some type of emergency response. You're going to need to call 911 and not sound like a blubbering mess and, hold up the call center and prevent information from getting there in a timely manner, right? So all these things to say is you're going to have that at some point, so come take my course.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. That makes sense. So would you agree, and I think we've kind of touched on this, but the idea of the active shooter, I agree with you. Like statistically, the likelihood that I will encounter an active shooter is low. But the mindset that I have to have in order to address that threat is the same mindset that I have to address the guy at the gas station that decides he's going to, beat up his girlfriend in the parking lot. The methodology that I use may be different in each scenario, but the mindset is the same. And that's a mindset of preparedness and response. Right. And again, we were talking about that last night at dinner is the idea that guys, especially, we say this in our courses all the time, guys are the worst about this, who don't train. And then you ask them, okay, well, but what are you going to do if it's that whole kind of like, well, I'll see red, man. Yeah. And the reality is once you start training, it really in anything, but once you start training, you understand very, very quickly that is non-existent.
It does not work.
That does not work.
Yeah.
I mean, so several years ago, I was a guy, I was running 5Ks. I would run half marathons. I would do gym work. I felt like, for a little bit older guy, I wasn't too bad, And then I was literally running down the road one day and it popped in my head for no reason. I was like, I think I want to try jujitsu again. I had tried it years and years before. Didn't really have a great experience. I said, I'm going to try it again. The first time I ever got on a mat with somebody who wasn't even really going that hard with me, okay? And gave me resistance, it was such an eye opener.
Yeah.
And you go, I am so out of shape. You don't realize that until you're in that, know? But once you begin to do that, then you really have a better handle on what preparedness actually looks like and what it takes to be prepared.
Yeah.
So you mentioned BECON. Mm-hmm. Walk us through that because that's something that you teach a lot. Walk us through those steps.
Yeah, BECON is, let me just first touch on the active shooter response industry. That's another really motivating factor as to why I started this because it's just a minefield out there. Everyone's trying to sell you something when it comes to items and gear and products that could stop an active shooter, right? And, there's just very few of them, in my opinion, that I actually would ever stand behind. So I'm curating a list of vendors that I would recommend in my vulnerability assessments. And there's some things out there that are really good and very easy to use and affordable. And then there's I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old and set in my ways. And then the instructor, the training world, of what the BECON thing, like of what I do. There's a lot out there too. There's the FBI's run, hide, fight, which is good. I don't ever talk crap on I try not to ever talk crap on the FBI run, hide, fight because it is good. And then there's just abysmally boring courses from people out there have never done anything real, in my opinion, to be brutally honest. And they're charging obscene amounts of money to sit people down for 4 hours and then talk at them, and they have no real experience. And it's a detriment to everybody who's actually trying to learn and get better. And no one's ever going to remember that when bullets start flying in their school, right? They're just not going to remember it. So that's why another reason I started this is because I want to make it, I'm very passionate about it. I know it's not complicated. It's pretty simple. Once you get the tools, it's pretty simple. And the cool thing is when I go talk to students after I've trained them or I come back and train them again the next year, they'll hit me up and be like, Kyle, dude, that thing you told me about the situational awareness, oh my gosh, I feel so much more prepared. I noticed this one guy that was like kind of following me one time when I was coming back from work, and I went the other side and he was definitely up to no good, and I freaking avoided it because of what you told me. So anyway, it's not complicated. And once you get it in their heads, they start seeing things differently. Yeah. Where am I going with this?
Let me ask you something. I'll bring you back to where you were, but I want to ask something because you touched on this. And this is really awesome because you and I are literally sitting at opposite ends of a table. We're talking about the same thing, and we're coming at it from totally different directions. One of the things that I've experienced when I started my company is what I'm going to call the perceived lack of credibility. I'm a lawyer, okay? That's what I do professionally. Personally, I'm a gun guy. I like jujitsu, right? But I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. And when I started in this space and trying to convince people, hey, you need to come do this, you need to come do this, one of the big consistent pushbacks was, I'm not the Green Beret. Well, you don't have deployments. You've never been in a gunfight. How can you teach me? And on the one hand, I can understand that because I do understand. It's kind of like, hey, listen, if you're going to do my brain surgery, I want to know that you've done one before. Right. Okay, I get that concept, right? But the flip side, I felt like, is a detriment because in essence, what you're telling me is unless I'm the Green Beret, then I'm not capable of teaching you these skills. But if that's true, then that means that you, who also aren't a Green Beret, you don't have the capability of producing those skills. Right. And what I'm trying to say is, listen, man, Kyle Sproles, if you go teach with him, like he's going to function way up here, man. And he's going to be able to show you things that I just don't even think about. Yeah. Right. But what I'm offering you is the same. You're on the same path. Right. Yep. Do you agree with that? Or
I totally agree. No, I totally agree. I think it's a huge detriment. I have an instructor with me who is not law enforcement, and he is not military, and he just competed in the tactical games recently, and he is very in shape. He is a very good instructor. He's done scenario-based training for years before I met him, and he's got no law enforcement or military background. In fact, I know a lot of us in the special operations community, when we go to off-site civilian shooting courses, we train with competitive shooters, not like law enforcement guys or whatever, right? It's like a lot of those guys have no military experience, but they're really good at shooting. And there's always something to be learned from those folks. So I would just say, be picky and wary on who your instructors are, and don't pay money for people that don't have a good reputation necessarily. But there are a ton of people that do know exactly what they're talking about, and they have no military background or whatever. You don't need that. You don't need that necessarily.
And my philosophy has been, and this is the reason I built my team the way I built it, but my philosophy has always been, I know that there's a lot of people that aren't going to be in the position I'm in that can't drop 3 or 4 days and drive to West Virginia to train with a Green Beret, but I can. Yeah. So if I can do that and I can absorb from you, and then I can go back to my little sphere of influence and I can say, hey, let me show you what I was just taught, then we're exponentially increasing the number of prepared people, and we're slowly changing the mindset overall of a nation that hopefully we get to a point where we can look and we say, on average, our people are prepared. On average, our people will respond, which is not where we're at now. I think it's where we need to get. But
100%.
So BECON, you were talking to me about.
Yeah, BECON. So back to the FBI thing, like the FBI run, hide, fight, and then the Marshal Service and DHS has another one, avoid, deny, defend. Like they're both great because in the moment you need to not think a lot. You just need to remember, run, hide, fight. Okay, got it. And that's what you need. So I am a huge proponent of those, and I am not trying to teach necessarily like over top of them. I also think that there's probably some things lacking in that simplification. So the pro strength is it's very simple to remember in an emergency. The downside is there's just some other things that you need to be throwing in there. And that's where BECON comes. And that's where we're talking about how do you calmly call 911. And in my class, we go over 3 911 calls from an active shooter in Louisville, Kentucky. And they're all for the same active shooter. And each of the 3 callers do varying levels of good and bad. And one guy ends up just cursing out the 911 operator and being like, you need to get here now. What the F are you doing? You're late. And really, she's just doing her job. And everybody already told her all the information. And he's just being a dummy. So anyway, BECON is an expansion of the simplicity, and it just gives you more tools. We talk about folks that have disabilities. Maybe you just can't run, right? And it also, it's not sequential. So that's a really important fact is BECON is not sequential. You don't have to barricade first and then escape. No, it's like the way I like to think of it is it's a hand of cards that you have in your hand. And you can take one, depending on your situation, do a little quick situational assessment of what's going on, take this one, throw it down on the table, and that's the card you're playing for the situation, right? And it's for active threat response largely, but also everything else in life that you may encounter.
I like it. It. Okay, give us the classes that ASR teaches.
Right. So we do armed and unarmed. And so for our armed professionals is like what we like to call it. We have obviously law enforcement, active threat response course. We have a public safety unarmed for like college public safety, active threat response course, but it's really it's an overall course for anything folks in higher ed public safety are going to encounter. Anything from drug overdoses to strange guy trying to contact a freshman girl on campus. We run through all that, and it's scenario-based training using the same methodology we use in Special Forces. And that's been hugely successful because they don't have a lot to draw on when it comes to training. We work a lot with church security teams, armed church security teams. So that's a big, big, big one that has a hole to fill in the country. And they kind of fit into a weird space because they're not part of a professional necessarily. They're not getting paid for this, but they are part of the church security team and they are armed, but they're not law enforcement and they're not private security. So how do we appropriately respond in a way that's not going to get us in trouble to any threat prior to law enforcement arrival? And a lot of my examples in my courses are from church active shooters and church shooters because it is a rising trend. It's church attacks across the world and across the country have severely increased from, I think it was 2022 to 2023. It was the last time I looked at it. Severe increase. So it's a real problem. And we take the church security team through a 1-day or a 2-day course or a 3-day course if they want, 5-day. And we also do consulting at churches. So this is the big one, especially for maybe your audiences. We'll do an active threat response course, and then we will go through and review their emergency action plan because they need to be covered on that. We will go through a basic vulnerability assessment of the church. What are some small things we can do to make sure that we just keep everybody safe? And then what was the other one? Oh, and the big question is like insurance. And I have the answer for you guys. So if you have issues with insurance for your church security team, I partner with an organization that you can either get it. It's kind of like a concealed carry insurance, firearms insurance. And you can get it as an individual that covers you as a church security team member, or your church as a whole can pay for the church security team, and it's not expensive. It's very, very affordable compared to what most churches do is they include that in their traditional insurance plan, which is just the traditional insurance companies like, oh, what is this, guns, firearms? Oh, we're racking the price up. We don't want to see this, right? So, and so we do all that. We do courses for private security. And then on the civilian side, we have a lot of clients in the higher ed space. So we do vulnerability assessments. and active threat response courses for the faculty and staff in higher ed. And then basically anyone else that is a civilian in a business, in a medical facility that wants active threat response. So the long and the short of it is we do all things active threat response. And we have a long-term relationship with you if you want. So we have vendor partners. We have recommendations on what you need to do. What kind of camera systems should we put at our college? We have all the solutions for you. So we're the one-stop shop.
Awesome. And one of the things you and I have talked about in the past is the team that you build.
Yes.
Because you have a very high-quality team around you.
Yes.
Talk to me about that team.
I am not messing around with this because of what I've seen in the civilian sector when it comes to active threat response training and the unqualified folks and the boring folks that are mudding the waters. So the really important key that everyone needs to know is I am not law enforcement. So how can I be a Green Beret and never have been law enforcement and teach law enforcement? That's because I surround myself with top-notch law enforcement guys. Most of them are all solid, Christian, ethical, moral guys that I would just drink a beer with and that I would trust with my life. I don't bring anyone in that I would not trust with my life. And so it's comprised largely of SWAT paramedics, SWAT guys, patrol officers who have responded in person to multiple active shooters, and special operations folks. And it's a great combo because you get the best of both worlds. And many of the guys have actually been involved in legitimate active shooter incidents, which is not what you see around the other places that are training this. For example, one of my guys has responded to 2 active shooters at schools in his patrol officer duties. And one of my Green Berets, my good friend, I'm not going to say his name but I did ask him if I could tell this story and he was cool with it. But basically he was a 23-year Green Beret, retired after 23 years, which is 3 years past even your typical retirement date. Had been fighting the global war on terror like his entire career, dude. And, then was doing some overseas military contracting and came home from leave or from time off and was like, listen, I'm going to take my wife and just like spend some more time with her. She's put up with all this BS of me being away for 23 years or whatever. And we're going to go see a country concert in Vegas. And if you know anything about active shooters in America, that was the worst active shooter event in American history, was the Mandalay Bay country concert Vegas shooting. And so I'm just going to get through this hopefully without getting emotional, but he's just such a good dude. I just hate to see this happen to him, but, he was there listening to the concert with his wife and the gunshot started. And of course he's a Green Beret, many combat trips. So he knows exactly what's going on. Recognized the gunshots right away. Nobody else knows what's going on yet. He grabs his wife's hand, runs towards the exit. And then unfortunately it was just dead weight behind him, and she had got shot in the head. So, anyway, it's an incredible story that he's learned a lot from, and he's excited and passionate about teaching this stuff too. And anyway, it's interesting. So I've surrounded myself with these guys who have real world experience and real passions to bring this to the country, and that's really the goal. Like, this is going to be a national organization, a national company. And our only mission, our mission statement is the preservation of innocent life. That's all it is, to preserve innocent life. And everything we do, if it doesn't line up with that mission, we're not doing it. So, and I just came up with a new vision statement, if you don't mind if I read it. I
Absolutely.
want to make sure I don't screw it up because I just changed it. But our vision is a country where the everyday American and armed professionals are confident and capable if ever confronted by an active shooter. And we have a company verse, which is Psalms 82:4, excuse me, rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. And that's basically how we do it here at ASR Solutions. And that's how I've lived my entire life, because that's why I joined the military. And I want to continue that same mission to save lives until the day I die.
That's awesome. and dude, I cannot think of a better way to end this conversation than that. Your past obviously has influenced where you're going right now. Your passion is clearly evident. I know it's going to come across to the folks that get to watch this. You can feel it in this room right now. I'm excited to experience that passion as we train this weekend. Anything that we can do to help ASR in the future, I'm 100% on board with you. I love what you're doing. I love your passion. I love the mission. And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to sit down with somebody like me and just take the time to talk to me about it, man. I really appreciate it.
Sure, man. This is exciting and fun. I love it. Can I touch on where you can find me?
Absolutely. 100%.
So it's activeshooterresponses.com. It's kind of hard to Google. Just type in the URL like the old school way, because I'm still working on my SEO. That's where you can find me, really. We have a YouTube channel, Active Shooter Response Solutions, as well. There's a couple of videos that displays kind of what we do. And I also want to touch on this facility that we're at, Summit Point, because they've agreed to let us come in, use their facilities, and train here. And we're going to take some awesome footage of the facility. It's freaking awesome. This place is a playground for guys like you and me. It's really what it is. I moved up here, and then 45 minutes away, there's this training facility, and I was in a bow shop one day, getting my bow tuned up, and one of the guys that works here had his Summit Point shirt on, and I was like, what, do you guys just not work? It's like 12 p.m. You guys just coming off work? And he said the same thing about me for the shirt I was wearing. I was like, all right, yeah, I get it. It's like a Tuesday in a bow shop at midday. But anyway, they offered me a job, came up here, and I'm an instructor up here, and it is awesome. So it started off as BSR, Bill Scott Racing. We have multiple tracks, and we train all sorts of folks in military, federal law enforcement, special operations, private military contractors, private security folks. They all come through here oftentimes to train before they step off on their operations globally, right? And basically, it started off as racing, and then Bill Scott back in the day, I think it was the 80s. He started it, I think, in the 80s, and then the global war on terror kicked off, and folks around the Northern Virginia area were like, hey, we need to come do some training. We need our guys to be able to do off-road training, on-road driving, convoy operations, executive protection type of operations with vehicles, and then do all these things and qualify before they step off overseas. And so he was like, sure, basically, this is like a very rudimentary explanation of what Bill did. He's a legend. But basically, now this facility is largely, it's that. We do racing on the weekends and throughout, I think Fridays as well. You can probably hear the cars, the little Miata go-karts out there, just zipping around. And then we also do a lot of the contracting and the military contracting, and units and federal law enforcement come through here and do that kind of stuff. And in addition to the driving, we also have this awesome new shoot house they made. It's called the Murder House, which is not the politically correct version of what it's called. I call it cold storage because it's in these big, freezer facilities that we retrofitted here. And maybe it's called TAC Maze East is the official name, whatever. It's going to be a place we train next 2 days. And, we have multiple shoot houses, which is cool because units can come here and hit multiple houses and do different trainings. We've got multiple ranges. We do tactical medical training anyway, and we're constantly expanding, adding new things. I'm just an adjunct instructor here. I'm not really on the full-time payroll, but it's a cool place. So we're going to train here. We're going to get some awesome footage. Maybe you can even put some of this on the footage. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited, man. I've been looking forward to this. We started off saying that this has been about 2 years in the works. And when you and I originally talked about it, it was going to be, I was just going to drive over to North Carolina. Yeah. We were going to record in your living room and then go to the range.
This is way better.
This is, 2 years has been worth the wait, but This is awesome. Kyle Sproles, thank you so much, man. Go check him out, ASR Solutions. I love the work that you're doing, brother.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks,
appreciate it, man.